Welcome back to the channel, Danko Financial YouTube channel. Today we are talking about whether or not Snowflake Stock, the stock ticker is, as you can see here, SNOW, whether Snow stock will reach 400, the price level of 400 right here once again. Now I want to start off by taking a quick look at the most recent price action movement here. So this past day was obviously pretty nasty for Snowflake, right? We saw an about 8.5% drop on the day alone. Over the course of the past 5 days, you're seeing the same exact, type thing. Starting here around 340, drifted up a little bit, hit about 370, and then right down to the almost 300 exactly range, right? So a pretty nasty drop off here in just the last 5 days. Now we look at the last month and we see an even worse drop off here, obviously with the 13.5% drop. Okay, so at one point we did touch the 400 price mark, only to then barrel down to, again, nearly 300. So that is not a very favorable, past month, past 5 days, past day, right? But what we want to talk about is, do we see any potential for this price of 311 to shoot back up to the 400 range? And as you can see here, already some big movement in the after hours with the most recent earnings report. That is a good sign for Snowflake investors as a whole, absolutely, especially this nice green big number here versus all of the red you guys have been seeing so recently. Now, I will mention here that, same thing if we look at the not the year to date. If we look at the 1 year chart, that this is not the first time that Snowflake has, essentially bounced off that 400 mark. If we look just about exactly a year ago, so this video is being aired as of December 1st. If we look about a year ago, we will see almost hit that 400 mark, only to bounce right off and then shoot down pretty significantly, dropping all the way down to that, about 270 range. And then, it kind of hovered in and out a little bit, only to, of course, then see a drop below 200 altogether, which is a very big drop from, again, nearly 400, right? So we saw that drop to under 200 at about, 188, looks like there. And then almost like a V-shaped recovery, not obviously the cleanest V-shaped recovery ever, right? But certainly we see the price moving back up to the 400 range. Now we are seeing once again this massive bounce right off. This in mind, I am not necessarily a long-term fan of Snowflake. I don't think they're a bad company. I think they are very heavily overvalued, and I don't trust the high valuation of tech stocks, especially in today's market. However, I do, and I can acknowledge the fact that there is a potential that this will, in the near term, jump back up to at least the 380 range, okay? The reason I say that is there's a few different reasons, all right? But if we look over the past month, right, we see see where it hit 400. Now we see some minor movement here over the course of what was basically a few days, almost a week. Then we see this massive drop. Now, this massive drop basically had to do with a number of different factors, and these, the following drops had the same exact thing, happen to them in terms of multiple factors playing in. So we saw the introduction of a new COVID variant that has occurred between this point here and this point here. Now, that COVID variant actually entering the U.S. was today, so that's why likely we saw this massive drop here, at least during the daytime. Now, in addition to that, we also saw Salesforce, which is the more or less cloud computing industry leader. We saw them report beats on their revenue and beat on their EPS. However, we did see, and as they spoke in their earnings report, that they were having some slowing growth, which was not a good sign for the cloud computing industry as a whole. Now, I do think that Snowflake certainly reversed that rhetoric with a very nice earnings report, the earnings report that they put out. However, again, that in mind, we have the weight of basically a number of these cloud stocks all getting dumped by investors on top of a new COVID variant, and then lastly, the Fed chair announcing that he wants to increase the rising interest rate, or more or less get rid of the assistance from the Fed a lot quicker than people were anticipating. So all of that was complete downward pressure to push this down significantly, again, to that about 300 mark. Why I say there's a potential for a very short-term bounce on this back up to, again, at least the 380 mark, 375 at least, 375, maybe 380, is because once these, all these events blow over, and I do think they will. I don't think the new, COVID variant, I believe it's called the Omicron COVID variant, is essential. Once that kind of bounces, the interest rates, once investors settle in on that, once they digest, which it looks like they really are, digest the earnings report, I see a very short-term move back from this 300 range, again, up to that 375 range. Now, let's take a look at the RSI of Snow as of right now, as the Snowflake stock. So specifically the day chart, we see here that the RSI, and for those of you guys who don't know what RSI stands for, it is Relative Strength Index. The RSI is nearing oversold, which means that obviously the past day, as you can see these red bars here, and I'll maximize this if I can. Yep, so you can see a lot of red here. We see the low at 305, but this essentially means, and when it hits this line, this is basically the oversold, the notorious oversold mark, right? So when there's a lot of selling pressure, this relative strength index goes down, and vice versa for when there's a lot of upward buying pressure. So with all the selling, it means that this thing is due for a bounce, all right? And we're going to see, I believe, the bounce tomorrow. I don't know how much downward pressure will be prevalent considering we are nearing this really, really close. We're at an RSI of 33 and the oversold mark is at 30. So I'm certainly expecting a bounce probably, tomorrow closing. I would like to say over 350. That's just a ballpark figure and that's more of a guess. But as a whole, I think over the next 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, we will see a bounce on Snowflake, bouncing up again to to the levels I was mentioning before, but at the very least, bouncing up from this low. This seems to me like it's going to be the lowest. I really don't see it going under 300 in the near term unless there is some more sporadic news that comes out, magically. Now, lastly, just as I highlighted before, but I just want to mention it again, the earnings report was very, very strong for Snowflake. It showed a lot of great growth potential and a lot of strong, more or less guidance in terms of revenue that a lot of investors are eating up, and a lot of institutions seem to be eating up as well. So as you can see, a couple key points here, but up more than 13% for third quarter revenue, which is obviously awesome. In addition to that, we saw that the fourth quarter product revenue guidance is over 30 million over what people analysts were predicting or projecting. So that is obviously a nice beat in that regard. And as a whole, I do want to highlight one more thing here. So this right here is for the full 2020 fiscal year. They're calling for upwards of 1.1 billion in revenue, which is awesome, right? That is very, very nice growth to see for this young company. And while I am not, like I said, a necessarily strong proponent of these tech stocks in the long term, not that they're not set up for success. However, especially these valuations, I personally can't justify purchasing this stock. I can certainly see a very short-term movement again upwards, from the current levels it is at now. So again, I hope this video really explained to you guys where I can see this going. Like I said, it's really tough to predict exactly when it's going to hit there. But again, I think this is a lot of all-in-one news that's brought it down from this 400 level. I don't think it has to do anything with the stock specifically. It's had to do with the overall market, the overall interest or industry rather, and then the overall market, which have essentially pulled it down. To the stock itself may be able to pull itself up, and I believe it will when again the market kind of eases up, loosens up, and gets out of this funk here with all this panic going on. So again, like I said, I hope this video helped you guys. Please, 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 if you liked it, click that like button, click the subscribe button, and until next time, I will see you guys. Take care.